The target was Pelcor Station, and it was perfect. The massive space station floated at the edge of Vakran space, serving as the Empire's main trading hub. Resources from 100 conquered worlds flowed through Pelcor before being distributed to the core systems. 8 million beings lived and worked there. Most were Vakran, but many were client species, slaves who kept the Empire running. Captain Sung Ho studied the holographic display of the station in the briefing room of his ship, the Shadow Strike. Around him sat his team of Special Forces operatives handpicked from Earth's best. Each of them had lost someone in the massacre. Each of them had volunteered, knowing they probably wouldn't come home. The station has 6 defensive platforms, Sung Ho explained, pointing at the display. Heavy weapons, shield generators, and about 300 fighter craft. In a normal attack, they'd detect us hours before we arrived and have plenty of time to prepare. But this isn't a normal attack, said Lieutenant Hyun-sik, his second in command. Exactly. We're using the quantum fold drives. We'll appear right inside their defensive perimeter before they even know we're there. Sung Ho zoomed in on the station's central hub. Our targets are the power core, the command center, and the communication array. We destroy those and the station dies. Questions? A woman named Corporal Jihai raised her hand. What about the civilians? The client species who are just slaves? We'll broadcast a warning. Give them 15 minutes to get to escape pods. Anyone who wants to live gets a chance. Sung Ho's expression hardened. But the Vakran don't get that mercy. They didn't give us any. The room was silent. Everyone understood. This wasn't just a military operation. This was a message. 2 days later, the Shadow Strike and 7 other stealth ships positioned themselves in quantum fold space, a dimension that existed between normal space and nowhere at all. They were invisible, untouchable, waiting for the precise moment to strike. Sung Ho sat in his command chair watching the countdown. His hands were steady, but his heart was racing. This would be humanity's first offensive action against the Vakran Empire. Everything hinged on surprise and speed. 30 seconds, the navigator announced. Around him, his crew made final checks. Weapons charged. Shields ready. Engines hot. Yuna sat in the cockpit of her fighter, secured in the Shadow Strike's hangar bay. She would launch the moment they emerged. 10 seconds. Sung Ho thought about the 10 billion. He thought about his parents who had been visiting his sister on Mars. He thought about all the empty chairs at family dinners across Earth. He thought about the Vakran who had laughed while broadcasting the massacre. 5 seconds for Earth, Sung Ho said quietly. For humanity, his crew responded. The ships folded into normal space directly inside Pelcor Station's defense perimeter. The Vakran never saw them coming. 1 second, space was empty. The next second, 8 human warships appeared like ghosts materializing from darkness. Chaos erupted. Vakran sensors screamed warnings. Station defenders scrambled to their weapons. But it was already too late. The human ships opened fire immediately. Yuna launched from the Shadow Strike's hangar, her fighter screaming into space along with 40 others. She had trained for this moment for 6 months. She knew every weapon, every maneuver, every tactic. But more than that, she was angry. That anger made her focus absolute. A Vakran fighter crossed her path. She locked on and fired. The alien craft exploded. First kill. She didn't feel joy. She felt nothing except the need for more. On the Shadow Strike, Sung Ho directed the assault with cold precision. Team 1, hit the power core. Team 2, take out communications. Team 3, command center, move fast. We have 42 minutes before reinforcements arrive. The human ships moved like dancers weaving between the station's defensive platforms. Every shot counted. Every second mattered. They used their new quantum disruption weapons, firing missiles that phased through shields before exploding inside their targets. The Vakran had never seen anything like it. Inside the station, panic spread. Administrator Kelvos, a high-ranking Vakran official, watched his screens in horror as human ships tore through defenses that had stood for centuries. This wasn't possible. Humans were primitives. They were supposed to be broken, terrified, ready to surrender. Get me Fleet Command, Kelvos shouted at his communications officer. Tell them we're under attack. Tell them the communication array exploded. The screen went dark. Kelvos stared at it, not understanding. How could this be happening? Lieutenant Hyun-sik led a boarding team into the station's central hub. They moved through corridors in full combat armor, their weapons ready. They encountered Vakran security forces and cut through them with brutal efficiency. Earth soldiers had trained specifically for close-quarters combat. The Vakran had not. Broadcast the warning, Sung Ho ordered from the shadow strike. Every screen on Pelcor Station suddenly showed the same image, a human in military uniform speaking in calm, clear tones that were translated into every major galactic language. This is Captain Sung Ho of Earth. We are destroying this station in 14 minutes. All non-Vakran personnel, get to the escape pods now. You will not be harmed. This is your only warning. Thousands of client species, Telk translators, Grish engineers, PAL maintenance workers, ran for the escape pods. They had been slaves of the Vakran for years, sometimes decades. Some were crying with relief. Others were too shocked to feel anything. The Vakran tried to stop them. Return to your post, they screamed. Anyone who abandons their duties will be executed. But the slaves didn't listen, they ran. And the human soldiers made sure they could. Corporal Ji Hai personally cleared a path to the escape pods, shooting any Vakran who tried to interfere. She wasn't here to hurt slaves. She was here to free them. The Power Core team reached their target. Engineer Bora, who had helped design the Singularity missiles, personally armed the weapon. She set the timer for 10 minutes. More than enough time to get out. Not enough time for the Vakran to disarm it. Core breach in 10 minutes, she reported. Pulling back. On the shadow strike, Sung Ho watched the escape pods launching. Hundreds of them, carrying thousands of former slaves to safety. Human ships moved to protect the pods, making sure none of the Vakran defenders could shoot them down. 8 minutes to detonation, the tactical officer called out. All teams report clear. We can leave any time. But Sung Ho had one more thing to do. The most important thing. He activated the station's emergency broadcast system, hijacking every communication channel Pelcor had. This broadcast would reach every Vakran world, every client species, every corner of the Empire. The galaxy would watch, just like they had watched Earth's colonies burn. Sung Ho appeared on the broadcast. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with cold fury. People of the galaxy, he began. 6 months ago, the Vakran Empire killed 10 billion humans. They broadcast our deaths for your entertainment. They wanted to show what happens to species who refuse to surrender. Today, humanity responds. The camera switched to show Pelcor Station, showing the fires burning through its structure, the human ships circling like sharks. This station is the first, Sung Ho continued. But it will not be the last. We are coming for every Vakran installation, every Vakran fleet, every Vakran world. We will not stop. We will not surrender. We will not show mercy. The Vakran wanted war. They will get war. He paused, letting the message sink in. To the client species enslaved by the Vakran, we offer freedom. Join us and we will help you overthrow your masters. To the Vakran, we offer nothing. You killed 10 billion of us. We will remember every single one, and we will make you pay for all of them. The broadcast ended. 3 minutes later, the Singularity missile detonated. The power core collapsed into a micro-black hole. For 3 terrible seconds, it consumed everything near it. The central hub, the command center, the remaining defensive platforms, all pulled into the void and destroyed. When the black hole collapsed, Pelcor Station was gone. 8 million Vakran dead. The client species safely away in escape pods protected by human ships. The Shadow Strike and its companions jumped back into quantum fold space, disappearing before Vakran reinforcements could arrive. The entire attack had lasted exactly 42 minutes. Back on Earth, the command center erupted in cheers. Admiral Taeyang watched the reports come in. 0 human casualties, Pelcor Station destroyed, thousands of slaves freed, and most importantly, the Vakran had received a message they couldn't ignore. But the celebration was brief. This was just the beginning. General Hyun-woo pulled up the strategic map, showing hundreds of Vakran installations across 300 star systems. One down, he said quietly. Where do we hit next? President Young-soo watched the broadcast from his office. He saw Pelcor Station collapse into nothing. He saw 8 million Vakran die in seconds. Part of him felt sick. Part of him felt guilty. But a larger part felt satisfaction. Secretary Ji-won stood beside him. The Vakran Council will respond. They'll send fleets to Earth. Let them come, Young-soo said. We're ready. Indeed, in the Vakran homeworld, High Commander Velthus watched the destruction of Pelcor Station with growing rage. The humans had struck deep into Empire territory and escaped without a scratch. This was unacceptable. This was humiliating. 6 months after the massacre, Earth had transformed into something the Vakran would never have recognized. Every city had become a weapons factory. Every university had become a military research center. Every able-bodied person had enlisted in some form of service. Humanity was preparing for war like a wounded animal preparing to strike back at the predator that had hurt it. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Junho walked through a facility that officially didn't exist. The Black Site Research Division had been operating in secret for 3 decades, but now its work was finally being used. The underground complex stretched for miles, filled with laboratories and testing chambers and things that would make the average person question everything they thought. They knew about Earth's technology. A young engineer named Bo-Ra met him at the entrance to Lab 7. She looked exhausted. Everyone looked exhausted these days. Nobody slept much anymore. "We have progress," Bo-Ra said, leading him down a corridor lined with armed guards. "The quantum disruption engines are working. We've tested them on 3 prototype ships. They can fold space in ways that should be impossible." "How much faster than conventional engines?" Junho asked. 40 times faster. A trip that used to take 3 months now takes 2 days. Bo-Ra pulled up a holographic display showing a sleek black ship. "We're calling them ghost ships. The Vakran won't see them coming until it's too late." They entered the lab where engineers were working on what looked like a massive rifle the size of a small building. Junho had seen the designs, but seeing the actual weapon took his breath away. "The Singularity Missile," Bo-Ra said proudly. "It creates a micro black hole on impact. Lasts for only 3 seconds, but in those 3 seconds it consumes everything within 1,000 meters. Ships, stations, anything. Then it collapses and disappears. Have you tested it? On an abandoned asteroid in the belt. The asteroid doesn't exist anymore. Neither does anything else that was near it." Junho felt a chill run down his spine. This was the kind of weapon that could end civilizations. Which was exactly the point. "How many can we produce?" "With current resources? 200 per month. We've been stockpiling for 6 months. We have over 1,000 ready to deploy." They moved to another section where a woman named Dr. Haijin was working on something that looked like a metal spider the size of a person. When they approached, the spider turned its head toward them, moving with unsettling fluidity. "The Reaper protocol is online," Haijin said. "We've created an artificial intelligence specifically designed for warfare. It learns from every battle, adapts to every enemy tactic, and coordinates attacks across multiple ships simultaneously. The Vakran have numbers and experience. We have intelligence that can outthink them." "Is it dangerous?" Junho asked, thinking about all the stories of AI turning on their creators. "Extremely," Hyejin said bluntly. "But only to the Vakran. We've programmed specific limitations. It can't harm humans. It can't make decisions about Earth's defense without authorization from command. And it has a kill switch that can be activated instantly if something goes wrong." Junho nodded. "Show me what it can do." Hyejin activated a simulation. Holographic displays filled the room, showing a battle scenario. A human fleet of 50 ships against a Vakran fleet of 200. The odds were terrible. But when the Reaper protocol took control, the human ships moved with perfect coordination. They struck at weak points, predicted enemy movements, and used tactics that seemed almost impossible. In the simulation, the human fleet destroyed the Vakran force while losing only 7 ships. "It's beautiful," Junho whispered. "It's terrifying," Hyejin corrected. "We've created something that's very good at killing. We need to be careful." Meanwhile, on the surface, Admiral Taeyang was overseeing the construction of what he had named the Vengeance Fleet. Humanity's shipyards worked day and night, building vessels designed for one purpose: destroying the Vakran Empire. These weren't exploration ships or cargo haulers. They were weapons wrapped in metal and fury. Commander Daehyun, who had been promoted to oversee fleet operations, walked with Taeyang through the main construction bay. Hundreds of ships were in various stages of completion. Workers swarmed over them like ants, welding and wiring and installing systems that had never existed before. "We have 2,000 warships ready," Daehyun reported. "Another 1,000 will be complete in 2 months. Each one is equipped with the new engines, the new weapons, and the Reaper protocol interfaces." "Crew status?" Taeyang asked. "That's the easy part. We have 4 million volunteers. We could crew 5 times as many ships if we had them." Daehyun paused. Most of them are people who lost family in the massacre. They're not interested in coming home. They just want to take as many Vakrin with them as possible. Tae-young understood that feeling perfectly. He had volunteered for the same reason. Make sure every crew member understands the mission. This isn't about heroism. This isn't about honor. This is about extermination. We're going to kill every Vakrin we can find, and we're not going to stop until they're extinct or we're dead. In training facilities across the planet, soldiers learned new ways to fight. Colonel Minji had been put in charge of special operations training. She ran her recruits through exercises that would have been considered impossible 6 months ago. But these weren't normal recruits. These were people fueled by grief and rage and an absolute refusal to let the Vakrin win. A pilot named Yuna was top of her class in the fighter simulations. She was 26 years old and had lost her husband in the massacre. He had been an engineer on Mars Station Prime, helping to build the colony's future. Now he was gone, and Yuna had dedicated herself to making sure the Vakrin paid for it. Minji watched Yuna fly through a training scenario, destroying simulated Vakrin ships with precision and aggression that bordered on reckless. When the simulation ended, Yuna had achieved a perfect score. Minji called her into the office. "You're good," Minji said. "The best pilot we have, but you're also taking unnecessary risks. You'll get yourself killed." "I don't care," Yuna said flatly. "I know. That's what worries me." Minji leaned forward. "Listen, I understand what you're feeling. I lost my sister, but if you die in the first battle, you can't kill any more Vakrin in the second battle. Stay alive long enough to make them really hurt. That's how you honor the dead." Yuna thought about that. "How many Vakrin do you think I can kill before I die?" "With your skills, hundreds, maybe thousands if you're smart about it." Minji smiled grimly. "So be smart. Fight angry, but fly smart." While Earth prepared its military, Agent Hana worked on a different kind of warfare. She was one of Earth's best intelligence operatives, and her mission was to infiltrate Vakrin space. It was suicide, basically. But then, most missions these days were. Hana had undergone genetic modifications that altered her appearance. She didn't look human anymore. She looked like one of the client species that served the Vakrin Empire, a species called the Telk who worked as translators and administrators. With false credentials and a perfectly crafted backstory, she had managed to get hired by a Vakrin shipping company. For 3 months, she worked on Vakrin cargo vessels, keeping her head down and gathering information. She learned their language, their culture, their systems. She learned how the Empire operated, where its weak points were, and most importantly, she learned about their history. What she discovered made her blood run cold. The Vakrin had done this before. Many times. They had conquered 17 other intelligent species over the past 1,000 years. Some had surrendered immediately and became slaves. Others had resisted and been wiped out. Humanity was just the latest in a long line of victims. But here was the interesting part. None of those other species had ever fought back effectively. They had either surrendered or been destroyed quickly. The Vakrin had no experience fighting a species that actually knew how to wage war. They had no experience with enemies who learned and adapted and refused to give up. Hana compiled everything. She learned into detailed reports and smuggled them back to Earth through encrypted quantum communications. General Hyunwoo and his strategists studied her information carefully, looking for patterns and weaknesses. "The Vakrin are strong, but they're arrogant," Hyunwoo told his command staff. "They've won too many easy victories. They expect resistance to collapse quickly. They don't know how to handle an enemy that just keeps coming." "So we keep coming," Commander Daehyun said. "Exactly. We hit them, and when they push back, we hit them somewhere else. We never give them a moment to rest. We never let them feel safe. We become the nightmare that hunts them." Back in the Black Site, Dr. Jun-ho was working on one final project. It was the most controversial weapon they had developed. He called it the dissolution virus. It was a nanotechnology plague designed to target Vakrin biology specifically. Released into a Vakrin population, it would kill every member of the species within days while leaving other life forms completely unharmed. Jun-ho stared at the containment unit holding the virus samples. This weapon scared him more than the Singularity missiles, more than the Reaper protocol, more than anything else they had built. This was genocide in a bottle. This was the power to erase an entire species from. The world went quiet after the massacre. Not peaceful quiet. The terrible quiet of a graveyard. Cities that had been full of noise and life became still. People walked through the streets like ghosts, their eyes empty. their movements automatic. Everywhere, the number repeated itself like a nightmare that wouldn't end. 10 billion. 10 billion people dead in 18 minutes. Every family on Earth had lost someone. Every workplace had empty chairs. Every school had missing students. The memorial services began immediately and never seemed to stop. In Seoul, 100,000 people gathered in silence holding photos of the dead. In New York, 1 million more. In every city and every town and every village across the planet, humanity mourned. General Hyun-woo stood at a memorial wall where names were being projected in endless scrolling lists. He found his wife's name, his daughter, his son. He reached out to touch the light, but his hand passed through it. They weren't there. They would never be there again. The wall was just light and air and grief. He had been married for 23 years. His daughter had just turned 15. His son was 12. They had been living on Mars because the schools there were excellent, because the opportunities were endless, because Mars was supposed to be the future of humanity. Now Mars was a tomb. Hyun-woo couldn't cry. He wanted to. He felt like there was an ocean of tears inside him trying to get out, but nothing came. He just stood there numb and hollow, staring at names that had once been people he loved more than his own life. A hand touched his shoulder. He turned to see Admiral Tae-young standing beside him. Tae-young looked like he had aged 20 years in 2 days. His eyes were red from crying. "My whole family was on Titan," Tae-young said quietly. "My parents, my brother, my sister and her kids. 17 people gone." "I'm sorry," Hyun-woo said automatically, though the words felt meaningless. "Everyone's sorry," Tae-young said. "The whole world is sorry. But sorry doesn't bring them back." He looked up at the Vakrin ship still hanging in Earth's orbit. "What are we going to do?" Hyun-woo followed his gaze. The alien vessels sat there like dark gods waiting for humanity to kneel. "I don't know yet, but I know we're not surrendering. They'll kill everyone on Earth." "Maybe," Hyun-woo said, "but at least we'll die fighting instead of living as slaves." President Young-soo had locked himself in his office for 36 hours. His staff worried about him. Secretary Ji-won stood outside his door, debating whether to break it down. She could hear him inside, talking to himself or maybe talking to the dead. She couldn't tell which. Finally, she knocked. "Mr. President, we need you." No answer. "Sir, the world is falling apart. People need leadership. They need hope. They need to know what happens next." Still nothing. Ji-won made a decision and opened the door without permission. She found Young-soo sitting at his desk, staring at a wall covered in photos. Every picture showed people who had died in the massacre. Citizens he had met, workers he had thanked, children who had sent him drawings. Thousands of faces looking back at him. "I can't do this anymore," Young-soo said without looking at her. "I'm not strong enough." "Yes, you are," Ji-won said firmly. "I killed 10 billion people. We've been through this. The Vakrin killed them. You made the only choice you could make. I should have surrendered." "And then what?" Ji-won walked around the desk to face him. "We all become slaves? Our children grow up in chains? Humanity spends the next 1,000 years working for an empire that murdered 10 billion of us for entertainment? Is that better?" Young-soo finally looked at her. "At least they'd be alive. That's not living. That's just surviving." Ji-won pulled up a chair. "I lost people too. My cousin was on Mars, my best friend from college was on Europa. My niece was 8 years old and she died on an orbital station. I want to crawl into bed and never come out, but I can't. Because if I do, they died for nothing. What do you want me to do?" "I want you to be president. I want you to give the order that every person on Earth is waiting for, the order to fight back." Young-soo was quiet for a long time. Then he stood up slowly, straightening his jacket. "Call an emergency council meeting, everyone, military, civilian, scientific. If we're going to fight an interstellar empire, we need every advantage we can get." 2 hours later, the council chamber was full. Every important leader on Earth had gathered. Military commanders, scientists, engineers, intelligence officers, politicians. They all looked exhausted. They all looked broken, but they were all there. President Young-soo stood at the head of the table. "The Vakrin gave us 24 hours to surrender. That deadline is in 6 hours. I want to know our options. Can we fight them?" General Hyun-woo spoke first. "In a straight fight? No. They have better technology, more ships, and they control 300 star systems. We'd lose, so we surrender?" Someone asked. "No. Hyunwoo said firmly. We just can't fight them the way they expect us to fight. We need to be smarter, faster, more brutal than they think we're capable of being. Admiral Taeyang nodded. Guerrilla warfare on a galactic scale. Hit and run. Strike where they're weak. Never give them a fair fight. Make every battle cost them more than they're willing to pay. That could take years, another council member said. Decades even. Then it takes decades, Colonel Minji said. She had been invited to the meeting because of her reputation as one of Earth's best special forces commanders. I don't care if it takes 100 years. The Vakrin killed 10 billion of us on live television. They broadcast it to the entire galaxy. They wanted to humiliate us. They wanted to break us. They made a mistake. What mistake? Ji-won asked. Minji smiled coldly. They left Earth alive. They left 7 billion angry humans with nothing left to lose. They should have killed us all while they had the chance. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what Minji was saying. This wasn't going to be a war of conquest or territory. This was going to be a war of extermination. Humanity against the Vakrin Empire. Only one species would survive. A scientist named Dr. Junho cleared his throat. He was an older man with gray hair and nervous hands. Before we commit to this, there's something you all need to know. Something we've kept secret for a long time. What are you talking about? Young-soo asked. 30 years ago, an alien probe crashed in the Pacific Ocean. We recovered it. We've been studying it ever since. Junho pulled up a holographic display. We didn't tell anyone because we didn't want to cause panic. But we've learned things. Technology that's decades ahead of anything we'd developed on our own. The room erupted in angry voices. You've had alien technology for 30 years and didn't share it? Someone shouted. We were waiting until we understood it completely, Junho said defensively. We were being careful. Tell us what you have, Hyunwoo ordered. Junho began listing things. Advanced engines that could move ships faster than anything in Earth's current fleet. Weapons that manipulated quantum fields. Shield systems. Cloaking devices. And something called the Reaper Protocol. An artificial intelligence designed specifically for warfare. How much of this is operational? Taeyang asked. Most of it. We've been building prototypes in secret for years. We just never had a reason to use them. Junho looked around the room. We have a reason now. President Young-soo felt something like hope stirring in his chest for the first time since the massacre. How long to get this technology into production? If we convert every factory on Earth? 6 months for the first wave, a year for full deployment. Too long, Minji said. The Vakrin won't wait that long. Then we stall them, Ji-won suggested. We pretend to negotiate. We buy time. They won't believe it, someone argued. They might, Hyunwoo said thoughtfully. They think we're broken. They think we're terrified. We can use that. We send messages. We ask for terms. We act like we're considering surrender. Meanwhile, we build weapons. The council debated for hours. Arguments flew back and forth. Some people wanted to surrender for real, believing it was the only way to save what remained of humanity. Others wanted to attack immediately, even knowing it meant certain death. But slowly a consensus formed. Earth would prepare for war. Real war, total war. They would lie to the Vakrin, buying time to build weapons and train soldiers. And when they were ready, they would strike with everything they had. One more thing, Minji said as the meeting was ending. When we start this war, we need to accept something. We can't be nice about it. We can't show mercy. The Vakrin broadcast our deaths to the galaxy. When we strike back, we broadcast theirs. We make every species in the universe understand that humanity doesn't forgive. We don't forget. And we never ever let genocide go unpunished. You're talking about revenge, Ji-won said. I'm talking about justice, Minji corrected. The Vakrin killed 10 billion people. They're going to answer for it. Every single one of them. Young-soo looked around the room. He saw grief on every face. He saw rage. He saw determination. These were not the same people who had gathered here 3 days ago. The massacre had changed them. It had changed all of humanity. Then we're agreed, Young-soo said. We prepare for war. We lie to the Vakrin. We build our strength, and when we're ready, we teach them what it means to attack humanity. He paused. This operation needs a name. The room was quiet. Then General Hyunwoo spoke, his voice soft, but the broadcast reached every corner of the galaxy. On 1,000 worlds, trillions of beings watched their screens as the Vakrin Empire prepared to make an example of humanity. Some watched with curiosity, others with pity, most with indifference. The Vakran had done this before. This was just another primitive species learning its place. Commander HFY was in the control room of Mars Station Prime when the alarms started screaming. She looked at the tactical display and felt her heart stop. 12 Vakran warships hung in orbit above Mars, their weapons ports opening like the mouths of dragons. "Emergency evacuation," she shouted into the station-wide comm. "Everyone to the escape pods. Move, move, move!" But there were 3 million people on Mars, the colonies, the mines, the research stations, the terraforming facilities. 3 million people and maybe 100 escape pods that could hold 1,000 people each. The math was simple and horrible. Most of them would die. HFY's hands flew across the control panel trying to launch every pod simultaneously. People ran through the corridors, some carrying children, others helping the elderly. The station shook as the Vakran ships moved closer. She could see them through the windows, massive and terrible and utterly without mercy. Her second officer, a young man named Kiwan, grabbed her arm. "Commander, we need to go, now." "Get to a pod," HFY said. "I'm staying until everyone else is away." There's no time. The first blast hit the southern dome. The explosion tore through the structure like paper. The air rushed out in a massive decompression. HFY heard the screams through the comm system for 3 seconds before that section went dark. 17,000 people lived in the southern dome. Now they were gone. On Earth, General Hyunwoo watched the screens in the command center. He saw the dome explode. He knew his wife worked in that section. He knew his children were in the school there. He tried to call them. The line was dead. "No," he said. Just that one word over and over. "No, no, no." Around him, the command center had become a nightmare. Every screen showed death. Mars Station Prime taking hit after hit. The Europa colony vanishing in a flash of light. Titan base broadcasting desperate final messages before the transmission cut to static. The orbital stations around Earth breaking apart. Bodies floating in the void. The Vakran made sure every camera was working. Every angle was captured. The galaxy would see this in perfect detail. Dr. Sujin was in the research lab on Europa when the attack began. She was a xenobiologist, one of the leading experts on potential alien life. She had dedicated her life to the dream of finding intelligent species among the stars. Now those species had found humanity first, and they had come with death. The base shook. Emergency lights flashed red. Her assistant, a woman named Yoonji, ran into the lab. "The Vakran are here. They're firing on the colony." Sujin looked at her life's work scattered across the lab tables. Samples from Europa's underground ocean, data on microbial life, theories about evolution on frozen worlds. None of it mattered now. "We need to send a message to Earth," Sujin said. "While we still can." Yoonji nodded and ran to the communications console. Sujin followed, her mind racing. "What do you say when you know you're about to die? What final words matter?" She typed quickly, encoding the message with every encryption protocol she knew. She made it personal. She made it a promise. She made it a curse upon the Vakran and everything they represented. "Message ready," Yoonji said, her voice shaking. Through the lab windows, they could see the Vakran ship descending, its weapons glowing with power. Sujin hit send. "Remember us," she said quietly. "Make them pay." The weapon fired. Europa's surface turned to superheated glass. The colony, the research stations, the 500,000 people living there, all gone in an instant. The message reached Earth 3 seconds before Europa died. On Titan, the story repeated. On the orbital stations, the story repeated. On the mining colonies in the asteroid belt, the story repeated. The Vakran were thorough. They didn't miss anyone. They didn't leave survivors. This was a demonstration of power, a lesson broadcast across the stars. 18 minutes. That's how long it took to kill 10 billion people. Admiral Taeyang's fleet was still racing toward Mars when the final transmission came through. It was HFY, her face covered in blood, the station burning around her. "This is Commander HFY of Mars Station Prime," she said, her voice surprisingly calm. "We are lost. The station is coming apart, but I want the Vakran to know something. I want the whole galaxy to know. We are human. We don't surrender. We don't forget. And someone someday will make you pay for this." The transmission ended. Mars Station Prime exploded 3 seconds later. Taeyang stood on the bridge of his flagship, tears streaming down his face. His brother had lived on Mars, his sister on Titan, his parents on an orbital station, all gone. Around him, his crew wept openly. Some collapsed to their knees. Others stood frozen in shock. "Admiral," his tactical officer said quietly. "Orders?" Taeyang wanted to charge forward. He wanted to crash his ships into the Vakran fleet and take as many of them with him as possible. But the Vakran ships were already leaving. They had done what they came to do. They were heading back to Earth, where they would hover in orbit like vultures, waiting for humanity's final submission. "Return to Earth," Taeyang said. His voice sounded dead even to his own ears. "There's nothing left to save." On Earth, 10 billion people watched the massacre in real time. Every channel showed the same images, the same explosions, the same death. Parents watched their children die on Mars. Children watched their parents die on Europa. Husbands, wives, brothers, sisters, friends, gone, all gone. And the Vakran made sure everyone saw it. President Young-soo sat in his office, unable to look away from the screens. He had made the choice to resist. He had told the Vakran no. And now 10 billion people were dead because of his decision. The weight of it crushed him. He tried to stand and his legs wouldn't work. He tried to speak and no words came out. Secretary Jiwon found him there an hour later. She had been crying too, but she had forced herself to stop. There would be time for tears later. Right now, the president needed to be strong. Earth needed to be strong. "Get up," she said quietly. Young-soo looked at her with hollow eyes. "I killed them. 10 billion people. I killed them." "No," Jiwon said firmly. "The Vakran killed them. You gave humanity a choice. You refused to make us slaves. What happened is not your fault. They're dead because I said no. They're dead because the Vakran are monsters." Jiwon pulled him to his feet. "And now you need to decide what comes next. Do we surrender? Do we become the slaves they wanted? Or do we make their deaths mean something?" Young-soo stared at her. Slowly, something changed in his eyes. The grief was still there, but something else was growing underneath it. Something cold and hard and absolutely furious. "What are you suggesting?" he asked. "I'm suggesting we make the Vakran regret they ever found Earth," Jiwon said. "I'm suggesting we make them pay for every single life they took. I'm suggesting we show the galaxy what happens when you murder 10 billion humans on live broadcast." In homes across Earth, the same conversation was happening. The same transformation. Grief was turning into rage. Sorrow was becoming fury. People who had never thought about violence were suddenly thinking about nothing else. Colonel Minji sat in her apartment, staring at a photo of her twin sister. They had served in the military together. Then her sister had taken a civilian position on Mars, working in colony administration. Minji had said goodbye 6 months ago, promising to visit soon. Now there was nothing left to visit. No body to bury, just empty space where a person used to be. She set the photo down gently and stood up. She walked to her closet and pulled out her uniform. She got dressed with steady hands. Then she called her unit together. When her soldiers assembled, Minji stood before them. Half of them had lost family members in the massacre. Some were crying. Others looked like they might never feel anything again. "Listen to me," Minji said. "The Vakran think they broke us. They think we'll surrender now. They think 10 billion deaths will make us afraid." She paused, meeting each person's eyes. "They're wrong. They didn't break us. They freed us. Because now we don't have to hold back. Now we don't have to show mercy. Now we can do what needs to be done." "What needs to be done?" one soldier asked. Minji smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. It was the smile of a predator. "We kill every single Vakran we can find. We hunt them across the galaxy. We make them extinct, and we broadcast it just like they did to us." The room was silent for a moment. Then one soldier stood up. Then another. Within seconds, the entire unit was on their feet. "When do we start?" someone asked. "Soon," Minji promised. "Very soon." The Vakran ships hung in orbit above Earth, waiting for humanity's surrender. Ambassador Thelros appeared on the screens again, his expression smug. "Humans of Earth," he said, "you have seen the cost of defiance. 10 billion of your kind are dead. Submit now and the killing ends. Resist further and we will turn your homeworld into ash. You have 24 hours. The broadcast ended. The Vakran settled in to wait. They had done this before. Species always surrendered after a demonstration. It was inevitable. Humanity would be no different. But in command centers and military bases across Earth, preparations. The sky above Seoul turned purple on a Tuesday morning. People stopped in the streets, pointing upward with their phones raised. The clouds had split apart, revealing something massive descending through Earth's atmosphere. It wasn't just one ship, it was 50. Each vessel stretched longer than the tallest buildings, their hulls gleaming like polished obsidian under the sunlight. General Hyun-woo was in a meeting when the alarms started blaring. He ran to the command center of the United Defense Council headquarters, his heart pounding against his ribs. The screen showed the same scene repeating across every continent. Alien ships hovering over major cities. New York, London, Tokyo, Mumbai, São Paulo. They weren't attacking. They were just waiting. Get me a connection to every world leader, Hyun-woo barked at his communications officer. Now. Within minutes, every television screen, every computer monitor, every phone on Earth displayed the same image. A tall figure appeared, its skin a deep shade of blue-gray, its eyes like burning coals. The creature wore armor that seemed to shimmer with its own light. When it spoke, the words came through in perfect English, Mandarin, Spanish, Arabic, and every other major language simultaneously. Humans of Earth, the creature said, its voice cold and mechanical. I am Ambassador Thelros of the Vakrin Empire. We have traveled across the stars to bring you a message. Your world has been discovered. Your species has been evaluated. You are primitive but capable of labor. The Vakrin Empire spans 300 star systems. We control thousands of worlds. Trillions of beings serve us. Today you will join them. Hyun-woo felt his blood turn to ice. Around him, the command center had gone completely silent. Everyone stared at the screens, frozen in disbelief. Thelros continued. You have 72 hours to surrender. Dismantle your weapons. Submit your leaders for processing. Accept your place in the Empire. If you comply, you will be treated fairly as a client species. Your people will work. Your resources will be harvested. Your world will contribute to the glory of Vakrin. This is not a negotiation. This is a statement of fact. The screen went dark. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then the room exploded into chaos. Officers shouted into phones. Keyboards clattered. Hyun-woo grabbed the edge of a desk to steady himself. 72 hours. 3 days to decide the fate of humanity. Across town, Secretary Ji-won was already in her office, pulling up every file the government had on extraterrestrial possibilities. She had always believed there was life beyond Earth, but nothing had prepared her for this. Her hands shook as she dialed the president's private line. I'm watching, President Young-soo said before she could speak. His voice sounded older than it had that morning. Call an emergency session. Get every representative into the council chamber. We need to respond. Ji-won looked out her window. The alien ship hung in the sky like a dark moon. What do we tell them? The truth, Young-soo said. That we're facing something we never imagined. And that we need to stand together. Admiral Tae-yang was on the naval base when the broadcast happened. He immediately ordered his fleet to full readiness. Earth's Space Defense Force wasn't impressive by any standard. 23 warships, most of them barely tested. 100 fighter craft, missile platforms orbiting the moon. Against 50 massive alien vessels, it felt like bringing a knife to a gunfight. But Tae-yang had spent his whole life in the military. He understood one thing perfectly. You never surrender before the fight begins. He called his senior officers together. I know what you're thinking, he said, looking at each face around the table. We can't win. Maybe that's true. Maybe we're completely outmatched. But we're not rolling over because some alien tells us to. Get every ship ready. I want firing solutions on every single vessel in our orbit. If this goes bad, we go down fighting. His officers nodded. Some looked scared. Others looked angry. All of them looked determined. The 72 hours crawled by like 72 years. President Young-soo addressed the world, trying to calm the panic. We are considering all options, he said, though his eyes told a different story. We will not make hasty decisions. We will protect humanity. Behind closed doors, the arguments raged. Some council members wanted to surrender immediately. We can't fight an interstellar empire, they said. We'll all die. Others wanted to fight no matter the cost. If we surrender, we become slaves, they countered. I'd rather die free. Secretary Ji-won tried diplomacy. She sent messages to the Vakrin ships requesting negotiations, asking for proof of their claims, attempting to buy time. The aliens responded once. You have 60 hours remaining. Surrender or face consequences. General Hyun-woo spent every waking moment planning. He called in every military expert, every scientist, every strategic thinker he could find. They ran simulations. Every single one ended the same way. Earth's forces eliminated in minutes. But Hyunwoo kept planning anyway. If we're going to lose, let's make them remember it, he said. On the third day, with only hours remaining, President Young-soo made his decision. He gathered his closest advisors in a secure room. Hyunwoo was there, Ji-won, Tae-yang, and a dozen others. I've been president for 8 years, Young-soo said quietly. I've made hard choices, but nothing like this. He looked around the room. If we surrender, we lose everything. Our freedom, our dignity, our future. Our children become slaves to an empire that sees us as animals. If we fight, millions might die, maybe billions, but at least we die as humans, not as property. So we fight? Hyunwoo asked. Young-soo nodded slowly. We fight. God help us, we fight, Ji-won closed her eyes. They'll destroy us. Maybe, the president said. But they'll know they were in a fight. Admiral Tae-yang stood up. I'll prepare the fleet. The deadline arrived. Every person on Earth watched their screens, waiting for the president's response. Young-soo appeared, wearing his formal suit, his face calm despite the storm behind his eyes. Ambassador Thelros, he said, speaking directly to the alien ships hovering above. Earth's answer is no. We will not surrender. We will not submit. Humanity will remain free, or humanity will cease to exist. But we will never bow to tyranny. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Thelros appeared on screens again. The alien was smiling, if that's what the expression meant. Foolish creatures, it said. You choose extinction. Very well. Let the galaxy see what happens to those who defy the Vakran Empire. The alien ships began to move, but they didn't head for Earth. They headed outward, toward the colonies on Mars, toward the stations on Europa and Titan, toward every place humans lived beyond the home planet. General Hyunwoo felt his stomach drop. His wife was on Mars, his 2 children. He grabbed his communicator. Get me Mars station, now. But it was already too late. The Vakran weren't going to attack Earth first. They were going to make Earth watch as everyone else died. The broadcast went live across the entire galaxy. Trillions of beings on thousands of worlds would witness humanity's punishment. Admiral Tae-yang launched his fleet desperately, racing toward Mars. They would never arrive in time. On the screens, the alien ships positioned themselves above the colonies, their weapons charged with light that seemed to tear reality apart. No, Hyunwoo whispered, watching helplessly. Please no, the Vakran fired.